We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today. Good evening, welcome to nufc Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Delighted to welcome these two guys back, Supermac and Gibbo. How are you, lads?
Feeling good. We're not a year older. We're not a year older since we saw you.
I'm not a pound heavier after Christmas.
Happy New Year, lads. Happy New Year.
And to everyone.
Yeah, welcome back. And what a happy New Year it was, Malcolm. FA Cup third round, been a bit of a bad time for Eddie Howe as the third round comes round at Newcastle. But this time, a draw away at Sunderland, potential banana skin, handled with ease and a 3-0 win against our rivals.
Yeah, I thought Sunderland looked a very poor side, to be honest. They couldn't, in the first half, they couldn't get two passes together, for heaven's sake. And Newcastle was so well on top. And you could see with the Sunderland players, they were just overawed at the way Newcastle knocked it around. And you could see defeat written all over the Mackem faces. They just really were not in the game at all. So well done, Newcastle, for that, because it's the way that they were playing that caused Sunderland to be in that fashion. They didn't go out to play like that, and Newcastle forced it on them. So I was well pleased. Got us into the next round, and what a draw that one is.
Especially for you, Malcolm.
Well, that's right, John. Yeah, my boyhood club. It's just a shame that Newcastle aren't at home.
Yeah, you're right.
But I must say though, although Newcastle made it look quite easy in defeating Fulham not so long ago at St James Park, watching Fulham against Liverpool, and this was at Anfield, Fulham looked a totally different side to what they were at St James Park a little while back. I thought they played some excellent stuff. They frustrated Liverpool for a very long time, and in the end, I thought they were unfortunate to actually lose it. So it's going to be it's going to be difficult, I think, for both sides to force the win down there at Craven Cottage. It's going to be a very interesting game, that's for sure.
Yeah, and a ludicrous kickoff time, Malcolm. 7 o'clock on a Saturday night because of coverage on ITV4.
Right.
Yeah,
that's only been decided today, then, or announced.
It's been announced, yeah.
Yeah. So 7 o'clock on Saturday night.
It's all about telly, isn't it? I mean, fans aren't taken into consideration, travelling fans whatsoever. I mean, I'm convinced that if telly said we wanted midnight on the moon, then it would be midnight on the moon. It's just played when television wants it to be played.
Yeah, but then, John, and so we're facing those problems. Then I've got it coming in the other ear. They cancelled Coronation Street.
Maybe Ant and Deck on a Saturday.
Well, there's always some good news, Malcolm, and that's the other good news.
John, you've covered many derbies, John. What was your feeling on Saturday? That was, for me, that was the most. I was down at the stadium of Place. That was the most one-sided derby that I've seen in recent years. I know we haven't played them for 8 years, mate, but that was very, very one-sided.
Men against boys. It was literally men against boys. The only thing that concerned me before the kickoff was that if our application's right, if we come out the traps hard, fast, do high pressing, get everything right from the start, then class will tell. Class will inevitably tell. And we did. Within 5 minutes, I was comfortable. Within 5 minutes of the start, I was comfortable because there was an inevitability about Newcastle winning. I mean, they're awful. They're a very, very average championship side. I mean, do they not like a football? Because they kept giving it to us. Did they not fancy kicking it about amongst themselves for a little while at some stage? I've never been presented so much with a football in all my lives as we were in that game. And, the high pressing, look at the second goal when Almiron took the ball off the fullback to help trying to play it out from the back. You should only try to play it out from the back if you can actually play, play it out from the back. Almiron takes it off and squares it. The game's gone. And it was men against boys. What I was pleased of, it's the game we needed. We didn't know before the kickoff how it was going to go. 5 minutes after the kickoff, we did. And what it did for us, apart from giving us the bragging rights, which we've been very much wanting to get, 9 derbies without a win before that, but it boosted our confidence. It gave the fans a huge lift, and it gave individual players a boost, which I think was significant. And what do I mean about that? Well, Almiron and Gordon had looked washed out in the Premier League and in the Carabao Cup recently. They looked washed out. But they got the vroom back, didn't they, in that game because of the opposition. But so they looked quality, quick wingers yet again. Joe Linton, I thought, was immense until he went off injured. In that first half, he was absolutely immense. And he's what we've needed in midfield, guys, in my humble opinion, because teams agree that they were Premier League teams, but teams have been running through our midfield straight onto our back four willy-nilly because all our players are good offensive players like Bruno and like Sean Longstaffel, who's been off form, like Miley, like Willock when he plays, and Anderson. They're all offensive. They've got no discipline in midfield, no physical presence defensively. Joe Linton gave us that. He was big and he was powerful, and you weren't going to run through him. And what worries me is that if he goes out the midfield against Man City, they'll run through us because they're quality in midfield. They'll run through our midfield.
That whole game is midfield, isn't it?
Oh, and Joe Linton is unlikely to be there. But Joe Linton was great. Almiron and Gordon were great. Isaac proved, didn't he? They hadn't a centre forward, and we had. They haven't got a centre forward even in the Championship because they've sold players, etc. They haven't a centre forward, and Isaac looked a proper centre forward. He looked a quality centre forward. Trippier got his mojo back and looked better again. So it gave a lot of individuals a boost. But as I've said before we came on air, the big difference now is that when we beat Sunderland, that was in the foothills of Everest. We're now going to the top of Everest when we're playing Man City. There's a little bit of a difference between Man City, who won 5 trophies in 2023. 5 trophies.
Yeah, but don't forget, though, John, that we've already beaten them at home.
Yeah, we have. Oh, yes, we did. But are you going to
deserved it as well?
Yeah, but we neither side played the full side in that game. It was early Carabao Cup, if you remember, and the mixed match side.
But if you look at Man City, they've got 2 teams.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And pretty near equal. So,
But I think it'll be a slightly
for the Champions League. So
I think it'll be a slightly different test on Saturday than it was at the Stadium of Play.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. Yeah,
without a shadow.
Nevertheless,
but I'm pleased. I'm pleased that a lot of the individuals got the mojo back. The fans were given something to crow about and were given a great lift, and it was a confidence boost all round. I mean, I've got to remember when I'm thinking of Man City coming up, I've got to remember that in our last 2 Premier League games, when we ought to have taken 6 points, we took none. And that was against Luton and Nottingham Forest. We need a step up from that performance against Man City, that's for sure.
We certainly do. We will come to that towards the end of the show. Not sure whether you guys have managed to catch up with Darren Eales' announcement today, or the club's announcement. Darren Eales obviously did a video on YouTube, which was about 8 minutes long, an interview with internal interview about the state and the financial results for the 22-23 financial year have come out. What are the taglines? Well, it shows a 39% increase in revenues, pretty much the same as last year, which is good news. United's revenues have increased to 250.3 million from 180 million. The club obviously continuing to recover from rather unambitious years, shall we say, under Mike Ashley. Sponsorship deals that we've recently accrued don't come into this year's finances. So that includes the Seller sponsorship deal and the upcoming Adidas kit manufacturing deal, and of course the prize money for the Champions League. They'll all be reflected in next year's accounts. Newcastle have reported a loss of 73.4 million. The reason for that is quite simple. It's driven mostly by the continued investment in the playing squad, so transfers and obviously increase in wages for bringing these players in. Darren Eales, for me, said everything that he needed to say on the interview. I think the one thing which maybe Newcastle fans could have done without was hearing him giving an example of how financial fair play works, by saying that we could sell a player for 50 million and it would benefit the club because this is how it would work over a 5-year stretch. Newcastle would be able to spend this, and all that happens when somebody at the club officially comes out and says something which not everybody completely understands is that it raises the speculation level. So people add 2 and 2 together and get 5. Everyone now thinks we're going to sell Bruno in the January transfer window because there's obviously lots of stories circulating about PSG being interested, despite the fact Bruno has come out on a couple of occasions in the last few days and more or less said that he's very happy at the club and he doesn't want to go anywhere. There's not much more. There's not much more we can. There's not much more they can do as a club. But overall, Malcolm, it's a good set of figures. I know people say, well, how's it a good set of figures when you've had 73 million pounds worth of debt? But it's a year behind, and we're still recovering from that 14 years of Mike Ashley reign.
Oh, absolutely, we are. Yeah.
I think the one
because we're not seeing the full advertising revenue, sponsorship revenue, because Ashley sort of tied it down and made things very difficult for the first 2 or 3 seasons of PIF. But
I think you're right, Steve. You're right, Steve, that the problem is when somebody gives an example to fans. For example, you could have to sell Bruno or Isaac or Botman, and he actually named them. I mean, the rumour machine's rampant, isn't it? Isn't
it, John?
Sell the 3 best players. And now, what he was given, unfortunately, when you give the example of the player, you think, well, Newcastle are open to selling those players. The example is that if you get 100 million in for Bruno and you spend 100 million on a replacement, it still works out better financially because the replacement's transfer fee and wages are spread over 3-5 years and aren't instant. So it's an increase. I know what, and then he gave other examples, which alarm bells. Aston Villa had to do it with Grealish, West Ham had to do it with Declan Rice, and Liverpool did it. So you get these sort of, and immediately there's alarm bells that these people are about to be bailed out. I don't think that for example, any of these transfer things will ever come into play in January. they would always come into play in the summer, not in January.
Yeah, sure.
I
And
think,
also, John, I understand that Dan Ashworth, he's going to be remaining at the club. There was talk of him going to Man United, wasn't there?
yes, but nobody's saying that he is. Nobody's saying categorically he's going to remain at the club, are they? They're saying we are very hopeful that he'll wish to remain at the club and will be with us a long time. And they said the same thing about Eddie Howe. But with a manager, we've known that you can sack him 6 months later. That won't happen with Eddie. But I mean, it's confetti in the wind, isn't it? Saying we hope a manager will be with us until he's an old age pensioner. I mean, people say that. But I do. I mean, this is just a repetition of what Dan Ashworth said when he first come in, didn't he? That sometimes a big player's got to be sacrificed for the club taking 1 step back to make 2 steps forward. But I think it'll be a very dull January, I don't think there'll be much done in January at all. No. Maybe it's a couple of loan deals, but what we are relying on in January, guys, is the return of Callum Wilson, Harvey Barnes. They should, after we play Man City, those two could well be available for Fulham in the Cup. I don't mean that Harvey Barnes would start because he's hardly played, has he? But be available.
He's got to really build his fitness.
And then longer term, it's a bit more obscure with shoulder injuries like Pope's had and Jacob Murphy's had. But they're relying on quality players who have had. I mean, in a way, it's a cliche that I don't particularly like. This guy's coming back. It's like a new signing. Well, in Harvey Barnes' case, it is a new signing because we haven't seen him, have we? We haven't seen him in Newcastle at all. And I think Newcastle are going to rely on A, the big names coming back, and B, the fact that we're only going to play 1 game a week for the rest of the season. The combination of those 2 factors pushing us back into competition for a European place. And you notice that today's quotes talked about a European qualification. They didn't talk about a Champions League qualification, a European, which is all embracing because, the Europa League in the conference. But I think, yes, we might get somebody in on loan, like Calvin Phillips or someone else on loan, but we're not going to see a lot of activity, and I doubt, unless somebody comes out of the woodwork in the way Anthony Gordon did a year ago, unless somebody comes out the woodwork, I don't think we're going to get any hard cash deals of any sort this January, this January.
No, I would agree. Calvin Phillips is an interesting one, Malcolm. I mean, it's a short-term loan that they're looking at if that's the case, but seems to be hampered a little bit with a financial deal that Man City want. They want potentially £7 million and us to pay some of his wages. It's a bit frustrating, that I guess, for the player just as much as it is for Newcastle, because the guy wants to play games, to get into England recognition.
He's hardly kicked a ball this season.
Or last.
Yeah. So, he wants to get playing, I'm sure. I liked him an awful lot at Leeds. I was surprised when he signed for Manchester City. I'm not so sure that he's a Manchester City type player. And I think he could have done a lot better for himself. Sometimes you have to look and ignore the really big club like as Manchester City. You've got to look at the way they play their football and decide. What's right.
I mean, I think there'll be a lot of gamesmanship with Calvin Phillips over this month of January, and I think there'll be a lot of brinkmanship. I think Newcastle would wait, and Manchester City would wait, and it could well be a deal that's done. I don't mean necessarily with Newcastle, but whoever it is will be done late in the window. There'll be brinkmanship. There's no need to go in now and pay £7 million in ginormous wages. Wait until a week before the window's due to close Manchester City are going to be faced with having him still on the payroll for the rest of the season, and they don't need him. And
it was never going to go through before this game either. I just think, if it had gone through before Man City, I would have found that really strange. I think after Man City, it's got more chance of going through.
But if it doesn't happen, I don't think it's a big problem at all.
It's not an area we need massive. We're doing all right in midfield.
A lot of players to come back.
I don't agree, Steve. I don't agree. I think it is an area we do all right in midfield defensively.
Do you think a defensive midfielder we need?
Defensively, we're hopeless. I mean, you can drive a bus through our midfield when we haven't got the ball. People run off Lewis Miley. Bruno hasn't got the discipline to do any regular defensive work. Sean Longstaff at the moment's all over the place. Willock and Anderson are offensive midfielders, not defensive midfielders. Between the edge of their penalty area and the edge of our penalty area, you can drive a bus through there in the Premier League. That's what Joe Linton stopped happening in the derby because he has a physical presence and it was inferior opposition. And so it didn't happen to us. But I've watched our midfield recently, and the need for a six, for me, is crying out enormously. They just run through our midfield. I mean, you may as well get a bunch of confetti and throw it up in the air in a high wind, and that's our midfield. All over the shop, they just go where the ball goes because nobody is a defensive one. Last season, we got away with it because if Bruno went, Sean Longstaff dropped in, or if Longstaff went, Bruno dropped in. Now everybody's just going. Everybody just charges at their penalty area, and on the counter attack, you think, who is there before you're onto our back four? And once you get onto our back four, with the cover goalkeeper and Byrne and etc., we've been vulnerable. And
most of all, the vulnerability is in the last 10 minutes of each half, and still we just don't seem to get it that like at Chelsea, for heaven's sake, we're 10 minutes away from being in a semi-final of a cup, and we're still charging forward.
And we
had a 1-0 lead at the time. For heaven's sake, just put the shutters up.
What a missed Malcolm, what a missed opportunity that was, because Chelsea are hopeless.
John, I was so angry. I was absolutely boiling at the stupidity that I saw taking place. There's Shah in the Chelsea penalty area with 10 minutes to go, and he's trying to knock a little ball to Isak. It got cut out, and they've gone straight up the field and equalised. And what's Shah doing there? We're 1-0 up. We've won the game if we don't concede. So don't damn well concede. And we did it. And it all started at Liverpool. St James Park against Liverpool earlier in the season. But 1-0 up against them.
Chelsea, when you look at Chelsea, they're a poor side, and they can't travel away from home. They're shocking. Look at their result at Middlesbrough. I mean, and yet they can make the final. If they win 2-0 against Middlesbrough at home, they make the final.
Yeah, they do.
They'll get murdered by Liverpool in the final, but they can make the final. We could have had a derby of sorts, Newcastle v Middlesbrough in a two-leg semi-final, if we'd only got the job done against Chelsea. But so that was a real missed opportunity this season. But we've had one or two with them. The European situation where in the last 45 minutes against AC Milan, we not only went out the Champions League, but we went out of Europe completely. But it's no good looking back. The back's gone. We've got to look forward. We've got to have a run in the cup.
John, you have to look back at the mistakes that have been made and correct them so that we don't make them as we go forward. And concentrating and defending a lead in the last 10 minutes of both halves is so vitally important. And for heaven's sake, it's been vitally important in every single game that's ever been played on a football pitch. It's nothing new at all. And what did we see against Nottingham Forest? Good heavens above, we're 1-0 up, not playing all that well. Forest were absolutely dreadful. They were, in that first half, they were just about one of the worst teams I've ever seen at St James Park. And again, Shah is in the Nottingham Forest penalty area with a couple of minutes to go to half time when we're 1-0 up. Just defend the lead that we have, take it into the dressing room, get reorganised for the second half, and let's go again. But that last 2 minutes of that half, it completely changed the whole character of the game. Nottingham Forest, they came out in the second half and they couldn't wait to get started. And they really went for it. They finished up winning the game. They are one of the worst sides that I have seen in the Premiership in a very long time, and particularly in that first half against Newcastle. And blimey, we get beat at home by them, then something is seriously wrong. And what it is we are just giving stuff away in the last 10 minutes of both halves.
I tell you what, Malcolm's really made me think that we're going to rip the backside out of Man City. Like, if we couldn't do that against Nottingham Forest, I'm off looking forward to Man City on Saturday.
Sure. Well, it's all a different game, John. But particularly
it'll be 6-0 against City.
If we find ourselves like we did in the first game, when we're 1-0 up and we're 10 minutes from half time, we need to defend that lead and hold on to it so that we can take it into the dressing room and bring it back out for the second half, and not be giving it away. And we have given, I think it's something like 21 goals have been scored against Newcastle in the last 10 minutes of both the first and second halves so far, and it's only halfway through this season.
Well, I'm going to go for a bottle 10 minutes before half time on Saturday, then, because I don't want to see it. In a glass of white wine 10 minutes before the final whistle.
Quite right.
I think we've won 1-0, we've lost 1-3.
Well, you know, if you don't learn from a lesson like Nottingham Forest, then you'll learn nothing at all ever.
I mean, the big hope that I've got, not talking about Man City, but talking about particularly, but the rest of the season, is that we're now only playing one game a week. We're just playing on a Saturday or on a weekend in the FA Cup or in the Premier League. All this business about being tired, regardless of whether we play the same team, you're tired if you're playing 3 games a week, weekend, midweek, weekend, repeatedly on a treadmill. We're not now doing that. We're playing a game a week. After we play Man City, we've got a fortnight off or something, for goodness sake.
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Before we go to Fulham. So we're not going to be overworked. We're on the training field. We can presumably relax more. We can get to work on the things that are going wrong to put them right. We're going to get a few players back. Hopefully we'll get Callum Wilson and Harvey Barnes after the Man City game rejoining. Let's hope that we're not going to have a player blinking well going off every time, which is what's happened. Big Joe, I think, is being underestimated. If we're without Big Joe on Saturday, and it's not confirmed yet, but I'd be surprised if he does play. If we are without Big Joe on Saturday, that is major. For this particular match, Man City, in our midfield, as brittle as it can be defensively, he will be a massive miss. I thought he ran the first half. In the Stadium of Light. I thought he ran it. And of course,
he looked really good. but also one or two other things. I was incredibly surprised that Livramento was left out and Dan Burn played at left back. I really was very, very surprised. Is this Eddie Howe's loyalty to players that have been in the side longer than others? I don't know, but Livramento, he deserved to at least ask the question, why are you leaving me out? Because I think, have I not done well when I'm in the side?
I'll tell you one thing, Malcolm. I'll tell you one thing. I bet Manchester City target Burn if he plays left back.
Well, of course they will. Yeah. Oh, absolutely they will. And they'll look, and not just with one player on him, but they'll get a couple of players out
double up
about all around him.
Double up on him, yeah.
Yeah, but Livramento, he copes with that.
Yeah, I think maybe just resting him, giving him a little break in anticipation of the Man City game coming up might have been the part. I mean, he gave a break to Miley as well. He put Miley on the sidelines and. Yeah,
Steve. The last thing a 21-year-old footballer needs is a break.
I get you. I get you. I mean, I guess. I mean, we all have opinions. I think sometimes. I mean, Eddie Howe works with the players, day in, day out. He sees what's going on with the training, etc. And I don't know. I mean, Miley's been superb. In the time that he's come into the team, it's just we don't know what's going on the training ground. As John mentioned, Longstaff, he seems to have struggled a little bit. He's probably been playing with a bit of a knock or an injury.
I would imagine he has been, yeah.
It's been very much a make do and mend season, but hopefully the new year brings new optimism. It brings some of these players that we've been missing for the last few months, back into the squad, and maybe one, if not two, additions before the end of January, albeit loans potentially, and maybe Newcastle will surprise us with a permanent signing. Who knows? Maybe the return in Hayden could end up, being part of the squad just as a short-term fix. I doubt it.
Heaven forbid. Heaven forbid. Heaven forbid.
Well, I know, but you said that, we said this about, we all said it about Lascelles, and look what he's done and come in. I mean, you give Eddie Howe an opportunity to fix people. Richie shouldn't be anywhere near the first team, yet he's still doing his job.
Hayden has a physical problem. Hayden's had a knee injury. He was a top player for us in the Bruce era and before the Bruce era, in the Ashley years. Hayden was a top player for us, did magnificent for us. I'll always be grateful. He is now well past his sell-by date, and injuries have caught up with him. In defence of Isaac himself, injuries, he's had persistent knee injury. I'll tell you something, Steve. If you go on loan to Standard Liège and you're playing in Belgium, which is not quite as good as the Premier League by a million miles, by the way, but not quite as good. And then we are told we've activated the clause to bring him back. That's the technical situation. We don't want to bring him back. We don't want him here. I mean, sure, Amiobi's still working tonight, trying to get him another loan somewhere else for the rest of the season. I mean, if he has, and by the way, the quotes that Standard Liège have come out with about sending him back are vicious, saying that this guy's had a wonderful career in the Premier League and all that, but he can't cut it, and he's not cutting it in the Belgium League. If you can't cut it in the Belgium League, you're going to come back and rescue Newcastle in the flipping Premier League, aren't you?
Yeah,
I mean, there's no hope in Bob Hope with Isaac.
John, were you being serious about the comments that you made about him when he was in the first team under Steve Bruce? Because I just couldn't.
I think I was actually why I opened it up, Malcolm. I think his best spell with. I was trying to say it was before this current regime. I think his best spell was probably with Benitez, but it was during Ashley years when when the crowd was singing his name and wanting him to stay at the club, and I know you were never a fan of that.
No, do you know what? Do you know?
Those were his best years. He's not like that, and he's not as good as that anymore.
Yeah, I just thought he was a Jeff Nolte Mark II.
Yes, I know you did. And unfortunately, I can remember Jeff Nolte.
Yeah.
So I know that's not a compliment. I know that's not a compliment.
I got sent this as well. You'll remember this fella, Malcolm.
Because let me. Oh dear Lord!
Somebody sent me that because they've been to a talking, like with
right.
me, you, and John a while back, and you often tell that story.
Yeah, he wasn't a bad player, Aidan. I have to say, but Jeff Nolte. There was one time we played Liverpool at St James Park, and we beat them 4-1. We absolutely murdered them, and Jeff Nolte, in the centre of midfield, touched the ball 4 times in the game.
Wow. Well, that's 3 times. The game just went around more than I've seen him on other occasions.
Yeah.
Mate, the mighty win agrees with you. He says Hayden was pony, except for a couple of games that he played in defence. He's definitely Nolte too. Yano, I just want to shout out to one of our regulars. He's had his chemo put on hold for a fortnight. Our wishes go with you, Yano. Thinking about you, mate, and keep up the fight, mate. Keep up the fight. Okay, we are slightly over halfway through the show, but it is time for those ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks again to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. If you'd like to order some, then give them a call on 01768 210 102. Go to the website mrvickys.co.uk or drop them an email info@mrvickys.co.uk. A big thanks to United Group Travel. They're a family firm based in Morpeth with pickups throughout the Northeast. No strangers on our tours, just people you haven't met yet. They've got a presence on Facebook and a website, unitedgrouptravel.com. If you want to make a booking, give them a call on 01670 632 460 or mobiles 0791 666 4174 0795 71 41654. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors. Let us look after you in your time of need. They're based on Old Durham Road in Gateshead, and you can contact them at their website, darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk or give them a call, 0191 478 2730. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And a big thanks to New Workwear. You can find them at newworkwear.com. If you want to help the channel, hit the thumb up to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and share to your other social media. You can also pay a one-off fee of £25 to get a scarf, a cup, a pen, and a membership card. Go to the website, nufcmatters.com, and click membership, or put your smartphone over this QR code. We also support the food bank on this channel. If you want to make some donations virtually, go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk and make a donation today. We're also a podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and other podcast providers. Just search NUFC Matters. I'm also a part of the Northeast Footy Brekkie Show. You can listen to that Monday to Friday, 7 till 9 at thetooneuk.com. We've also got an event coming up next year. It's in January the 19th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. It's an evening with Nobby Solano. Tickets are available on voucher for £20. Okay, I do want to show another photograph, actually. I got sent this by Andrew, who's in the chat tonight. He says, can Malcolm tell me who the guy on the left is with the headphones?
Gibbo,
you might know him.
Oh,
You've both seen him in action, I'll say. That's your clue. Malcolm a little bit closer than John.
He's played against Malcolm, obviously, or with Malcolm.
He's not he's a bit like an aged John Motson.
Well, he's not.
I don't think he played. I don't think he played with you, Malcolm.
He's not a player, and he's not a commentator or a reporter.
Blinking heck! Well, there you go. Now,
he's 90. He's 90 years of age, and he is still very fit. He still goes to the gym, and he just finished a 10-miler on the bike when that photo was taken of him. He's from Newton Aycliffe, and his name is Terry Farley. Terry Farley was the referee when Malcolm made his debut at home against Liverpool.
Oh, really? Oh, well, I never.
Well, that's fabulous. That is absolutely fabulous, because I think he should have ruled all 3 goals out, and so he obviously wasn't Terry's best day. But no, that's having a joke. That's wonderful. And doesn't he look as fit as it's possible to look? And by the way, can we thank him for giving the penalty for Malcolm's first goal? I mean, it was a penalty, but he saw it, and he didn't have the help of VAR in those days. He did it on his own eyesight. So good for him, and good for all the rest.
Yeah. I just want to say a big shout out as well to John and Malcolm, one of John and Malcolm's favourites, Chris Wood. A wonderful hat-trick he scored against Newcastle. As always, class rises to the top, Malcolm. You're shaking your head already.
What a disgrace you are, Wayne. What a disgrace you are.
The Newcastle defence, for heaven's sake.
Goal, were you, Steve?
Well, I was when I went to the bookmakers, John.
Yeah, well, there you are. I tell you what, he never scored 3 goals in the Premier League in his whole career at St James's Park.
I had him for first goal scorer. Yeah. I had Newcastle to win 3-1. So unfortunately, I didn't get any payout. But yeah, I did back me confidence in Chris Wood. I had a feeling he would score against us, and he certainly did. Andy H asked a question earlier on. He says, Marco Gabbiadini has blown a gasket over the team photo at the end of the game on Saturday. What do you think of it? Is a mountain being made out of a molehill? Because that's what I think, says Andy. The photo, of course, he's talking about is this one, where I was top right, lads, in the lower section. I had my scarf in the air, but I thought this was great. Oh, it was a great idea, and it was great to have a photograph taken on the pitch with all those fans behind. How often do you have 6,000 supporters following you at an FA Cup game? And get the opportunity to celebrate on your rival's pitch. I mean, what did you make of that, Malcolm? Bad taste or well within reason to do it?
No, why not? Why not? Sunderland had already slunk off the pitch, haven't they?
Yeah.
And all the Sunderland fans had disappeared, other than those on the tail end of the queues to get down the stairwells. So
no problem. No problem for you. I mean, we all got free drink, John, after the game. It was fantastic. The card machines went off. So for an hour and a half after the game, I was one of the last buses to go. We were stuck in the stadium, and the Sunderland bar staff started giving away all the drink for free to all the Geordies still in the bar. And then
you won twice, Steve. You won twice on the drinks and on the match.
Fantastic.
I mean, Marco, bless him. Marco, I've got to declare
free drink from Sunderland. You're not a Sunderland fan now, Steve, are you?
No, but I tell you what.
Here's a drinks time. Here's when it comes to the drinks.
I tell you what, Mal, if they continue in this vein, I mean, they could become Newcastle United's B team or something like that. I mean, the hospitality they showed us was fantastic.
Well, yeah, letting us decorate one of their bars, etc., etc. They were brilliant. I mean,
I think it would be more the BH team.
The way the team played, if they'd had a shot at their own foot, they would have missed it.
Yeah.
But, there we are. Marco is a lovely lad. He's a good friend of mine. I've got to say
Marco,
that. I did a lot of shows with him on stage. At the time when there was talkings where you put a Newcastle and Sunderland player on stage together. I mean, now it would cause a riot. It caused a few riots in those days, but we would often have Quinny on Marco or Don Goodman, and Marco's a good pal.
But you need them in the same division, though, John.
Marco works for BBC Radio Newcastle. He does with Sunderland some of the stuff. Benno's the other one against John Anderson, who does it for Newcastle. And he's Korean favour with his old club and his old. This is totally disrespectful, etc., etc. Hey, I thought it was good fun. We're not going to worry too much about that. I mean, he wants to concentrate on his team, bless him, Marco, and see what he can do about increasing that. Because to say that bang average is to pay them the biggest compliment they've had this season, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. Thanks for all your comments in the chat, and thanks to all the moderators being in the chat tonight. Fabian Scher signed a new contract, Malcolm, and another 1-year extension. I mean, he's had a wonderful season, hasn't he? This season again.
Is it confining him to sticking at centre half?
Don't. Steve, you've set them up again. You used to do it. With the guy that I've refused to name in front of him that's gone to Saudi. And now we're doing it with Cher.
I mean, potentially we could bring Mitrovic and ESM back, Malcolm, on the Saudi loan deal.
Now I want you, unless you've got an extension to this program that takes you into tomorrow morning, I want you to behave yourself.
He doesn't bite anymore.
I mean, let's be truthful. I take the point, Malcolm.
When St. Maximin went abroad, you thought we'd have no content for this program, Steve.
I did, yeah. You're right.
and now we've set him up yet again. I'm pleased Shaw has signed the contract because I take the point Malcolm made in a particular instance, but he can come out the back. He's good use with the ball. He's
terrific, but there are times to do it, John, and times.
We know. You've told us, Malcolm. Don't start again, my old friend. We've got to be off by midnight. There's not enough time to go into it anymore. I'm pleased he's signed because I think overall he's more pluses than minuses. He can play. He has done a terrific defensive job. Yeah. He is one of the players that shocked me because he looked bang average under the previous regime.
Oh, didn't
he looked riddled with a mistake. He would make a mistake a game and it would normally be very, very costly. His career has been revitalized under the current regime. He is a typical example, like loads of them, like Almiron, like him, like Jacob Murphy to a small extent, like Sean Longstaff. They'd have got careers that looked very average before and looked as if they had no future at Newcastle. They've got a future at Newcastle. I'm pleased he's staying. There isn't such a thing as a player outside of perhaps Pele in the old days or Maradona that can't be topped by an even better player. And that's what happens as you build a side. Every player in the Newcastle side today, you could get a better one eventually when you win the Champions League. But right now, he has done a terrific job for us, and I'm pleased he's staying.
Yeah, definitely well deserved. And George Bainbridge, we will touch on this before we look ahead to Man City. George says, would Malcolm like to talk about playing against the great Franz Beckenbauer? Of course, we lost Franz Beckenbauer, didn't we?
This week.
Malcolm will be able to talk about beating him to score a goal for England, if I remember rightly, Malcolm.
Yeah, they would, and they prior to scoring the goal, he actually rugby tackled me. Beckenbauer. I got past him and he dived and grabbed hold of my legs.
That wasn't quite the elegant player we remember.
He struggled for pace, but he was an absolutely super player. And he could play anywhere in the back line. He could play anywhere in midfield. He really was a quite supreme footballer. But he did lack a bit of pace, and I think that that he just dreaded somebody like me with pace going at him.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was watching England and reporting on England at the time, etc. And he was so elegant. I mean, when you talk about world-class players, and you don't think about it, but you automatically talk about strikers, don't you? You talk about Messi and Ronaldo. You talk about Pele, Di Stefano, Maradona, Cruyff, etc. You always talk about offensive players, but you also talk about Beckenbauer and tell you how good he was.
Sure, you know that. I think that just about his equal was Bobby Moore,
who also lacked pace.
Yes, absolutely. But I use this just to have a knock at the English game of football. That if you look at the German game, you'll find all the international players over the last few years. They've all got jobs with clubs, all of them, and they're even on the board. There's some of them that become the president and what have you. It never happens over in this country, never happens at all. And you just look at Bobby Moore and the really poor and shabby way that the game treated him after he had retired. And I used to get quite annoyed. I really did. That that Bobby Moore, the man who lifted the World Cup for England, skippered England all the way through '66. He should have had a job for life in the game.
Malcolm, he should have
an FA ambassador.
He should have also had knighthood.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yes, he should. Yes, he should. And they can leave knighthoods a bit too late, and I think that was the case in Bobby Moore's situation. Yeah. I'm surprised that they didn't give him one posthumously.
They can't, Malcolm. Once you die, you can't get knighthood. That's a legal situation.
Well, break the rules for heaven's sake. Somebody who lifted the World Cup.
I'd be all for that, but I'd be all for that. But we might have to give Hadrian one for his wall or something like that.
When it comes to Bobby Moore, don't start quoting the rules at me, John.
Yeah, I don't upset him, John. Don't you do it?
No. The programme's not long enough, Steve.
No, it definitely isn't. Okay, Newcastle United back in Premier League action this weekend. Newcastle take on Manchester City. Another television game, of course, which sees us kick off on TNT Sports at 5:30. Following the home defeat by Nottingham Forest in our last home game, we are looking to avoid a second successive Premier League defeat at Gallowgate for the first time under the manager, Eddie Howe. And Newcastle, of course, have already beaten Manchester City this season, albeit in the Carabao Cup. Get a little bit of faith from that. As for the team news, well, John's already mentioned that Callum Wilson is still sidelined. It doesn't look good on Joe Linton. I think all the stories that are circulating might suggest that his layoff could be longer than we all feared. Harvey Barnes, Joe Willock, Jacob Murphy, Elliot Anderson, Nick Pope and Matt Targett are still all out injured. And of course, Sandro Tonali is still ineligible. Don't forget as well, the Premier League suspension thresholds have now altered. It's now a 2-match ban for any player who collects 10 bookings in the first 32 Premier League games. And at the moment, Anthony Gordon and Bruno Guimaraes are both currently on 7 yellows. So nothing to worry about at this moment in time. Also, for Man City, John Stones is unavailable for selection. The bad news, of course, is that Erling Haaland is penciled in to make his return against Newcastle. And De Bruyne, of course, on the road to fitness, could make his first start for Manchester City in the Premier League. Two big players, for Man City at the weekend. As for the officials, well, some of you have already mentioned it in the chat, but Kavanagh, of course, I think is the referee for this particular game. Chris Kavanagh, of course, he had the 1-0 home win over Manchester City in the Carabao Cup game, and then he oversaw Premier League away losses at Bournemouth and Spurs before the defeat at Nottingham Forest. So a bit of a bogey referee, if there is such a thing. And on VAR, Peter Banks is in control of VAR. If you are coming up on train from London, I know a lot of people do travel up and watch the show. King's Cross is closed on Saturday and Sunday, with LNER services starting and terminating at Grantham, and the rail replacement bus services to and from London are operating via Corby. So just be aware of that if you're one of those fans who just jumps on a train and hopes for the best. And there's no Grand Central service on either day, and Lumo services will only run north of Newcastle. Okay, Mal, tough game this. It's never easy against a team that's won everything. You've got to have a little bit of luck with injuries, but you've also got to have a bit of luck on the day. So is it a damage limitation game, or do you think Newcastle might surprise everybody and get something after the performance against Sunderland?
Well, the last game that Newcastle played, they were absolutely shocking at St James Park, and I think they've got an awful lot to make up for that. They literally chucked 3 points away. Newcastle, they seem to play better against the top sides sometimes than they do against the lower sides. Nottingham Forest, Luton, and yet we've beaten Manchester City already once this season. So, I think we can surprise. We are a side that's sort of up and down this season, and we can go and surprise. I don't think you can actually nominate exactly what's going to happen with the Newcastle side of the moment. So I'm looking forward to seeing some fascinating football though, and Manchester City, they're chasing. I think they're still fourth, aren't they, in the table, and they're a way behind. It's an opportunity for Newcastle, I think, to put that damn memory of the shocking performance against Nottingham Forest behind us, and
Okay, prediction from you on this one, Mal.
I'm going to take a draw. I think they could be goals, so I'm going to go 2 each.
2-2. Okay, John, what about you?
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be as tough as it's possible to get. I think it's a massive step up from the derby. And it's a massive step up from our last 2 Premier League games, which were against Luton and Forest. It's hugely different. And I think when we get the team sheet an hour before kickoff, I think the thing that will come home to me and make the huge difference will not be the 2 starting 11s, but the bench. Newcastle on the bench will have not one solitary single attacking player outside of Matt Ritchie, if you're going to make him an attacking player, because they're not going to have Wilson or Murphy or Harvey Barnes or Anderson or Willock. They're not going to be able. We talk about game changers. Newcastle won't have a game changer. They'll have 3 forwards, Almiron, Gordon and Isak. If you want to bring them off, who comes on? They will not.
Yeah.
You look at their bench, De Bruyne won't start, in my opinion. He'll be on the bench. And either Doku, who I think is a fabulous left winger, better than Jack Grealish, either Doku or Jack Grealish will be on the bench. Haaland may be on. Dave, you look at their bench and you look at our bench, and our bench will be packed with defensive players. We'll have Kraft and we'll have Dummett and we'll have Lascelles and we'll have Hall and we'll have Lefamenko because he'll stop third. They're not going to change the game. If we are 1-0 down, it's pointless bringing them on. Who's going to change it for us? And then you look at their bench and they'll have De Bruyne and Doku or Grealish, and sadly, I think the bench is going to tell the difference between the 2 sides. And Geordie, who desperately wants to cling to dreams, because that's what Geordies have done for 130 years that Newcastle's existed. They've clung to dreams, and it's wonderful to do so. I think we'll have a good second half of the season once we get Manchester City and Aston Villa out the way, because the next 3 games after that, is Luton, Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, which sounds a real opportunity to get 9 points, until you realise all 3 of them have already beaten us this season.
Yeah.
Luton, Forest, Bournemouth.
Redemption.
A narrow defeat. I think we'll not win. I think we'll lose, but only by a goal. But when we say only, there's no chance of a cricket score. We've played them twice this season. We beat them up here in the League Cup, and we only lost 1-0 down there. We were never an offensive threat down there, but we only lost 1-0. It'll be tight, but I honestly, if I've got to put my professionalism on the line as opposed to my heart, I think we'll just narrowly lose.
Okay, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win. So we've got a full hat trick. We've got a draw, a win.
There you go.
One of us is going to be right, lads.
That's why I love you, pal, because you throw every statistic out the window and say, hydraulics, Newcastle are going to march on the world. Well done, you.
Good stuff. Don't forget, Gibbo will be at the Louis Liquor store on the Big Market with Lee Clark, 3:15. Malcolm is up at the club, so if you're lucky enough to be in the area that Malcolm's working, you might see Malcolm as well. And in the words of Malcolm, as he was walking around Wembley when he scored 5 goals against Cyprus, Sunderland, read it and weep. Read it and weep. 3-0. Great night, lads, as always. Look forward to seeing you next Thursday. Gibbo, I'll see you tomorrow night. Take care.
God bless you.
Weekend,
Take care, guys.